to another episode of the Black Man's Roundtable. Today, we're going to kick off our very first runoff special. And for that first runoff special, we have candidate Lauren Wallace, and she is running for Superior Court Judge, and she is one of the last two standing for for that position for this runoff. So we're going to talk a little bit different today. As far as it'll be a little bit different from Lauren's first interview that she did with us, along with everyone else. We're going to really kind of dig in deep. This is the last stretch. This is the last go round. I think election is June the 18th, right, Lauren?
That's right.
Yes. Yes.
And
June
early
18th.
voting starts next week.
And early voting start next week. So again, if you want to hear some of the longer version questions that Lauren did, go to the first interview that we did with her. But in this runoff one, we're gonna really kind of narrow it down, because the candidates are narrowed down. And without further ado, Lauren, remind the people of who you are and what you're running for and all that stuff before we get into these questions, and then get into our conversation at the end.
Great. Thank you so much, Rodney, for having me again. I enjoyed it so much the first time. So any opportunity I get to speak to your audience, I always jump at it. I am Lauren Wallace, and I am running for Superior Court Judge. We are running for Bo McClain's seat, as he's retiring at the end of the year. And I have been a lifelong public servant, and just hope to continue to serve Douglas County from the bench.
Great. Okay, Lauren, what we'll do, and I just finished talking to a guy named Lawrence, so it's kind of confusing. I've been talking to him. Yeah, I've been talking to him for the last hour, and
it actually happens a lot. I don't know what it is, but I get
the
Lawrence
Lauren,
a lot.
the Lauren and Lawrence thing, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, the first question, and these questions are primarily from our followers of the Black Man's Roundtable, and matter of fact, all of them are, except one. One is directly from me, but I won't say which one that one is. But
Okay.
yeah, but either way. Here we go. And they're more conversation pieces, Lauren, as you know. They're not necessarily questions.
Let's talk
But
about
the
it.
audience want you to talk about what you feel, how you feel about mass incarceration in general. And then please, if you want to get very specific, you can definitely do that. But mass incarceration affects young black men more than any other people in the United States, and that also includes Douglas County. And they definitely want to know your view on mass incarceration.
Okay. So I am not blind to that issue. I've also studied that issue, and not to mention, just deal with it every day. For those of you who don't know, I am a Deputy Chief Assistant District Attorney here in Douglas County. I've been a prosecutor for 13 years. 10 of those years were in DeKalb County, and the last 3 have been in Douglas County. And I am not ignorant to the demographics of who we see in our courtroom, and how that is not representative of our community. There's a gap in who we see in our courtroom versus who we see in our community. And so I've always worked in progressive prosecution offices. So we have always been taught to look out for that. And, we're here, prosecutors are public servants. We are here to serve the county that we work in. And so that means all citizens. And we want that to be as fair and equitable as possible to all citizens. So we want the criminal justice system to be as fair and equitable to all citizens. So the way I think that we can counteract that is that not everybody should be going to jail or to prison. The way to fix that issue is the number one thought in a prosecutor or judge's mind should not be to automatically lock someone up. Now, there are some circumstances where that is necessary in order to protect the community as a whole. However, there are other options. So I've always looked to those other options first and foremost because I think that there are issues in the community that maybe young black males, older black males aren't being addressed. Maybe substance abuse issues or mental health issues, and more resources need to go towards trying to help people who are dealing with those issues, especially to young black males, older black males. If we can get them in those get them to the resources, to the treatment that they need in order to address those issues, then that's a much better option than just throwing people in jail.
Great. And Lauren, so as a Superior Court judge, what
Yes.
do you, I know you're not there yet, but as a Superior Court judge, meaning that you know what that bench does, and as far as when it comes down to law, how do you feel you can directly address some of the mass incarceration? I don't know you'll only be one judge, but some of the mass incarceration issues that we have, along with some of the issues you just talked about, but now directly from the bench, let the audience know that how Judge Wallace would handle some of this stuff.
So of course, every case is different, and every defendant is different. So you can't really say across the board how you would handle it,
Right.
certain instances. But I can say that I would look to the other options other than incarceration. I would look to those first before I thought about the end result, which would be incarceration. So not only are there the accountability courts, there are also DRC. They're basically, I've lost it off the top of my head what that stands for, but they are basically, Daily Reporting Center. That's what it stands for.
Got it.
So there's other options to have people highly monitored and watched over to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. There's other options for people other than incarceration. So my first thought is always, what can we do to help this person and remedy that behavior? And I would ask the attorneys in the courtroom who are handling those cases, who of course know the case better than the judge knows the case because they've been dealing with it for much longer than the judge has. But I would press the attorneys to make sure that they have explored all avenues in lieu of mass incarceration.
Thank you. The next area is unequal treatment. Black people are more likely to be stopped by police, detained pre-trial, charged with more serious crimes, and sentenced more harshly than white people. For example, research suggests that white male jurors are more likely to recommend the death penalty for black men than for white men who commit the same crime. Lauren, if you can talk to the audience about your feelings on that, not feelings, but what do you professionally feel about that? And go into as much detail again as you feel necessary.
So really the question is about the disparate treatment, is what I'm
Yes,
hearing you ask me, correct?
correct.
So, and as far as, the white men on the jury recommending the death penalty more frequently, in that must be in other states because, or just when they're talking in general,
Yeah.
because the way our system is set up, it's not going to be up to a jury to recommend the death penalty because the sentencing phase is left up to the judge, not a jury. So that's not really an issue in Georgia for jurors to make those types of decisions. I think that's probably for the best. So in terms of the disparate treatment, again, I'm very aware of what goes on. And not that I'm saying that I'm not saying it happens intentionally. I don't know if, I'm saying there's probably some sort of unconscious bias happening to where that is, to where that's taking place. So what you have to do is just be very aware that that's an issue, that it happens, and you have to look out for it. Because if you're not aware, or if you deny that it even happens or exists, then that's the problem. You're going to continue on with that behavior. But I am aware that this is an issue, and as I have my entire career, looked out for that disparate treatment in order to make things fair for all citizens.
Thank you. Lauren, you said that, if I heard you correctly, you're basically saying that it is for the best that in the state of Georgia, that sentencing is left to the judges versus the jurors, right? Versus the jurors,
Well, I
right?
just don't know that if it were left to the jurors
Mm-hmm.
to decide sentencing, because there's such a wide range of sentencing options. I
Right.
don't know that there would ever be a consensus between 12 individuals on what the right thing to do would be. So I do think it's probably. A better, more efficient scenario for the judge to handle the sentencing phase,
Right.
and the guilty or not guilty, the triers of fact and law to be held in the hands of jurors.
Yeah, and the reason I asked that question is you're absolutely right. The judges sentence, here, and but I have to think about then if it's best for judges in sentencing, then help us understand why. Now we got judges. All pretty much judges been lawyers, and they've been great lawyers. Obviously, I think the pathway to get into a judge is not by being a terrible lawyer, but this then help us understand why the death sentence numbers are so disproportionate based on race when it's the judges who are doing the sentencing.
And you're talking about capital punishment
Yeah,
is.
capital punishment. I'm sorry, because remember in the blurb that I kind of read you, it was talking about the death. One of the things it talked about was the death sentence and how basically disproportionate they are, and how white it said jurors but judges kind of sentence. Help us understand, because obviously you're doing this to be a judge. Help us understand why it is so disproportionate, the numbers are.
And I'm assuming you're talking
Death
nationally.
penalty. Well, no, even here, no, in Georgia. Um,
So the prosecutor is the one that will decide whether or not they are going to recommend the a specific case for the death penalty.
okay.
I do not believe I have ever worked in an office where that was a recommendation to the court. So
Oh, you're saying you've never worked in an office where the recommendation was the death penalty? Okay.
correct,
Okay. And I
correct.
understand. I was just hoping that maybe you can help us because again, these are viewers and they just really want to know like why is it so why the numbers are so different, so disproportionate when it comes to the death penalty. And a lot of times, that's what they want to know. But like you said, you don't really have that you haven't had that experience quite yet. And but
Well,
yeah,
I mean,
go ahead, Lauren. Go ahead.
I could say, I haven't dealt with it, and that my point in saying that is this is the death penalty is not something that I seek,
Right. Got it.
because again, there are other options. I think there are better options. And so now I can't say that that will never happen. I can't, because it is still the law in Georgia. I will be sworn to follow the law in Georgia. But I can tell you as a prosecutor, I have never sought that in the all of my cases that I've dealt with, because that's not something that I seek or any of the prosecutors' offices that I've been employed with have sought. Now,
Okay.
I think before Dahlia Racine was the elected DA, the death penalty was an option, and the district attorney's office had sought the death penalty in certain cases, but I can't, as a judicial candidate, I can't, and not knowing enough about those cases, I can't say whether or not I agree with those decisions, because I don't know what played into the decision that they made in order to seek the death penalty.
Got it. This next area, I know you talked about it a little bit in our first interview, in the primary election, because you talked about some of the work that you have done, um,
Mhm.
on the accountability courts and everything. And so the criminal justice system can have a negative impact on communities, making it difficult for people to re-enter society.
Right.
I want for you to talk a little bit about some of the barriers that you see in reentry
Reentry into the community.
into the community. Yes.
So you're right. I did speak pretty in depth about that in our last
Hmm.
interview. So I'll try
Yes.
to make it a little more succinct.
Okay. All right.
I do have a habit of kind of rambling on about certain topics, but I'm very proud of the work that I have done with, and we call it a reentry bond, a reentry program. I'm very proud of that work because we realized that the longer people stay in jail, the longer or the more likely it is that they will lose everything that they have accumulated on the outside, such as a job, housing, relationships, the resources that they need in order to to make it in everyday life. And so if they're behind bars and incarcerated, then they're likely to lose that. And so then they're having to start over from scratch. So in order to combat that, and of course, I realize that they're the ones committing the crimes, but I also realize that they're committing the crimes because they likely have a substance abuse issue or a mental health issue. And so when we are deciding whether or not to give someone a bond, we're looking at whether or not they are a danger to the community, a risk to reoffend, or a flight risk. Are they going to show back up to court? And if they don't have stable housing, how likely is it that they're going to receive the notice to show back up to court? So there's lots of barriers, lots of hurdles that they have to get through in order to continue to do what they're supposed to be doing. So sorry, I started rambling again. Let me get back on track. So in terms of the reentry bond, people were staying in custody for sometimes a year or more in custody while decisions were being made about how to handle their case. And we all decided that that is unacceptable. And so when we are dealing with someone who would be appropriate for an accountability court program like drug court or mental health court or veterans court, we are going ahead and giving them a reentry bond to re-enter the community, and that they're getting out of jail and within around 45 days, which is a whole lot quicker than, the year that they could be in custody, awaiting that decision as to whether or not they're going to be accepted into one of these accountability court programs. So that's an excellent thing that has changed within the last year or so, and of which I've been a part of, and signing off on identifying people who would be appropriate for these programs, and then signing off on their bond to be released back into the community with the resources that they need, like the drug counseling or mental health counseling, and drug testing, making sure they have stable housing to go back to. So all of that is through this, the accountability courts and this reentry program, of which I've been a big part of. So I'm very, very happy about that. In terms of re-entry into the community after a lengthy sentence, maybe they had to go to prison for a crime that they committed. So in that instance, there are programs set up through the Bureau of Prisons, the Department of Corrections, that would be provided to them in order to successfully re-enter the community. And actually, the Douglas County Sheriff's Office has a re-entry program as well if you've been incarcerated in the county jail for some amount of time. So there are lots of resources that are available. I don't know if if everybody knows about those programs, but there are things set up to help those individuals re-enter the community.
Yes, in fact, I'm talking with a group of community leaders right now on, how can I say, kind of getting into the reentry program that the Douglas County Sheriff's Office has. I knew about the accountability courts. I knew about, some of that stuff, but I'm, now learning about this reentry program. So it's fairly new, but I've been talking about it for maybe the past couple of weeks. And I'm like, I consider myself someone in the know, and I'm like, man, I'm just now knowing about this. So my whole thing is to help make that program not so inconspicuous, if you will. People need to know.
And you're talking about the one that is run through the sheriff's office?
Yes, Douglas County Sheriff's Office. Yes, ma'am. I've been talking about it now for about a couple of weeks, and there's some things that I'm looking forward to with that. I'm gonna just say that.
Yeah.
We're gonna see how it all works out. So yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. And next one is structural racism. Black people are more likely to live in poor communities, which expose them to risk factors for both offending and arrest. This is due to a history of structural racism and inequality of opportunity. How, Lauren, how much do you think that structural, a little different from, institutional, but straight up structural racism, how much of a role you think, well, first of all, what do you think about that? And how much of a role you think it plays into the incarceration of Black people, Black men specifically, Black youth even more specifically?
So, as I've stated before, um, there is that issue, and I've stated that the majority of crimes that we see are being committed by people who have substance abuse or mental health issues. And if people in poor communities don't have access to the resources to address those addictions or health needs, then they are likely to end up in the criminal justice system. And so I think we see that play out all the time. So I do think that is an issue that needs to be addressed within the community to get people in poor areas those access to resources to curb substance abuse and mental health issues.
Okay. So Lauren, before we get into just the more of the conversation piece where we want to definitely give you the platform to be able to really talk to this audience, who you perceive this audience to be, and really lay out your case for this audience to come out and vote for you. Like I said, this audience is primarily super voters. They pretty much vote in every single election. Like myself, I'm a super voter myself. I vote in everything.
Good job.
I feel like I just missed a vote yesterday. I vote so much, but
We are always voting.
I know, right? And but that's there's not really casual. There's not really a casual political audience for this roundtable. They are pretty much engaged and locked in, and so that being said, before we get into you really making the case for as to why this audience should vote for you, I want to get like you just talked about, we talked about crime. I understand that judges are judges, and that they, that the the Lady Justice got the blindfold and all that stuff. That is cool to, believe and understand all that. But when you have relatives that you have seen or friends that you have seen not, have that same Lady Justice with the blindfold, it makes you a little concerned. So, or you don't see the criminal justice system exactly the same way. And some of the things you laid out is some of the differences that you will make in having people to be more confident about the criminal justice system. I don't have to tell you there's a whole bunch of things going on right now in the criminal justice system. I'm not necessarily going to have you to opine about those things, but like you said, you're human. You're an American citizen yourself. You see those things, and I hope that you understand why we don't see ladies justice the same way in the Black community. That being said, judges, like I said, supposed to not necessarily be that way and look at the court of public opinion. They're supposed to look at the court that they preside over. But crimes are more by proximity than anything else. Black people pretty much commit crimes against black people, and white people against white people, and Asians against Asians, and so forth and so on. Some of the most violent, one of the most violent states in America is Alaska. and there's hardly no black people there. So, so I want you to talk about a little bit, if you will, about how you're not someone who is confused or blinded by, some of these misnomers, some of these misconceptions about, how do you, if you can let the audience know, how do you know and how do you see our community, the black community? I know that's kind of a very broad question, but I think that this is an opportunity for this audience to, you see this white lady, right? And it's like, okay, she's going to be another judge or whatever, and she's going to be someone that's locking us up disproportionately and those kind of things. Let the audience know how, as far as the black community and how you see that and how you see crime and none of all the stuff that they try to put on TV to make, black people out to be these monsters, especially black men who are the primary people that's looking at us right now. If you will, talk about that a little bit, Lauren.
So that was a lengthy question.
Yeah, I did a little rambling. Because I wanted to come. I don't want to try to put anybody on the spot. I don't really like that. But I just know what the audience want to hear. And it's go time.
Yeah, no, and I mean, obviously, I'm a white lady. So I want everyone to understand. I want your viewers to understand that I get it, because
and I just want the audience to know, Lauren, that I didn't just assume you was a white lady. When we first met, you was like, hey, I know you think that this white lady, I'm and I'm not this or that. So Lauren, you told me that you was a white. I don't want people to say, well, he just assumed she was white. No, she told me several weeks ago, that she was a white lady who really, wanted to do some of the things she's talking about right now. So
yeah, so I want your viewers to know that I get it, and I want them to feel that I get it, and that I understand that these are real issues that people of color deal with day in and day out and have dealt with for centuries. So I am not blind to that. I don't, I don't pretend that those aren't real issues. I have devoted a lot of time and effort into educating myself about those issues. I care about those issues and want to make a difference in that area of the community. So I don't want your viewers to assume that, just because I'm the white woman, I don't get it, because I do. And I think that the reason I get it is because, I have a mother who was a public school teacher for 28 years and understands that not every child is treated, that you would not treat every child the same. Also, I've worked for two amazing Black women prosecutors who have instilled in their employees the importance of looking at each case individually. And yes, you follow the law. And honestly, you don't, when a case comes across my desk, I don't know I don't know the person's race initially. The first thing I'm looking at is, what are they charged with? What do the reports say? What kind of physical evidence is there? Can we prove the case? And I talk to the victims, who, by the way, as you mentioned, if there's crime happening, a lot of times the victim of the crime is a person of color. So I want people to understand that I have helped the community and helped people of color my entire career. And so
Now
they have,
that's good. I think I think you've definitely answered it. But one of the things I want to do is, before you go on, is you talked about the law, right? And
yes,
so we know that that laws come from legislation and policy, right? And
right.
so we know that, and I just want to get this in there, Lauren, before you finished out that topic or whatever,
Hmm.
is that we know that there is bias, there is racism, there is all of that in law and in policy. And so I tell people all the time, I don't care what's in your heart. I care, what is your policy? What is your legislation? And I don't try to figure out who's racist and who's not. It's the same way I tell people all the time. I don't, if you want to know, and this ain't nothing that I made up, but if you want to know, somebody's priorities, then look at their budget. It's just the way it is. It's the same way with law. And so we're hoping that you will be one of those judges that understands that it's just like, well, I'm just following the law. uh, we know that the law is, I know that judges' hands are tied with a lot of things. We know that stuff, but it seems like judges' hands all of a sudden are untied when it may be some rich white guy who got a lot of privilege and status or whatever, right? All of a sudden, and so what we know is that laws come from legislation and policy. So, for instance, crack cocaine versus powder cocaine, that has been proven many times that was just a biased, racist, law. But when judges say, well, I have to do this because this is the way the law states, we know that just because it's the law does not mean that it doesn't have bias and it doesn't has racism and those kind of things in it that affects this, disproportionately affect this very community that follow this, this roundtable. But yeah, Lauren, just finish up. I just wanted to, because when we hear, there's certain buzz things that, and I just want the audience to know that when Black men specifically hear, well, it's the law, then we're like, okay, but when it's this guy, then it's not, and we know that the law can be, not so good.
I think when I say, I'm going to follow the law, I
Hmm.
mean, well, I can I can say with surety and positively say that that I follow the law consistently across the board, no matter who the defendant is. But I will say that there is a wide range of options within the law, and I again uh, lean toward. Sorry, I kind of went blank.
Yeah,
Lean
no, I
toward
think she was going to say you lean toward,
rehabilitation. Sorry, lean toward
exactly. Hmm.
rehabilitation over incarceration. But I want you and I want your viewers to know that I have never handled. Uh, as, in fact, I can think of a case that I handled in DeKalb County where the defense attorney was jumping up and down because their client was a pilot, and they got a DUI, and they were just all up in arms because this was going to negatively affect that pilot's job. And so they were wanting me to reduce the charges. And no, I mean, I'm following the law in that I can see with the physical evidence that your client broke the law and these are the consequences. So I hold everyone accountable. But I also, in at the same time of holding them accountable, I also want to redirect their behavior. So
Right.
holding them accountable doesn't just mean sending them to prison. It means they've got to take responsibility for what they did and do better.
Yeah, and I just wanted to give, like I said, it's crunch time, right? And I know that judges cannot or should not legislate from the bench, but I just wanted the audience to know that you are aware that all of our, just because it's the law doesn't mean that it's perfect, doesn't mean that is right,
Yeah,
or doesn't mean that is equal. That's what but
right.
I know you can't legislate from the bench. I know, and this is an opportunity right now for, you know, that a lot of times it's these situations where your constituents, the voters really get to hear, what that judge really on the inside, what they really
Hmm.
feel, what they really, because once you're there, I don't have to tell you, it's a little bit it's a little bit different, once you're kind of on the bench. But go ahead, Lauren.
Yeah, and I think that that really the only way the voters can know where I'm coming from and how the best prediction of future behavior is past behavior. So if
That's
they
true.
look at what I have done in the past and how I handle cases, how I think about cases, how I resolve cases, and then I think that they will know that I am very fair. I don't always I understand what the right thing to do is, and I'm not easily swayed by a defense attorney who thinks they're slick coming in, to make their arguments, or even if they're well paid attorneys. That doesn't sway me at all. I know what the right thing to do is, and I'm going to stick with that, whether or not I've got a high paid defense attorney telling me otherwise. And so I'm always going to stick up for the person who's been harmed, for the victim of the crime, and try to remedy the defendant's behavior with some sort of rehabilitation. That's how I've always operated. I'm very fair. People know that. Defense attorneys know that. So I think, and judges know that. Which is why I have several, defense attorneys backing my campaign, because they know me to be a very fair and honest person and lawyer.
Do you want to, again, before we get into that conversation, like I said, of you just talking to the audience, and I'll be quiet and let you talk to the audience. Do you want to opine? Do you want to talk about any of the current, or some of the, I guess you could say current, laws that's been kind of, how can I say, disturbed, laws such as, laws that's been around forever, like, like the equal
I'm afraid
rights.
you're about to ask me to say something I'm not supposed to say as a judicial candidate. I can't really talk about, what I think about those issues, but
Okay. All right. Okay. Again, these are just things that people want to kind of know, and so that's why I said, if you want to,
you
feel
can
free to.
finish it if
About,
you think
well, it
it's
was it
something
was
that I'm
it was
allowed
just,
to.
well, probably, like, what do you think, like the civil rights uh bill, or the civil rights law, it was kind of gutted, like Roe versus Wade. It was kind of, like, if you want to talk about those things, and not necessarily how you would rule, but just, to give the audience an idea of what you think about those.
Yeah, I think on the
Okay.
that's where the line is, to
Where the
where I
line is.
can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
Yeah.
hey, it's worth it. Hey, it's worth a try.
You tried.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
tried.
that's worth a try. Okay, Lauren. So what we'll move into, okay, you got a captive audience here. As you know, there will be a recorded version. People will get to see it, and you know the early voting is coming up and those kind of things. I'll let you repeat that information as we get ready to close out, as I allow for you to close it out. And the election on the 18th. What do you can just feel free to talk about what you think, what you want for this audience to know about Lauren Wallace, the lady, the attorney, the future judge, the wife, whatever.
I want people to know that I am a fair and honest person. I'm a unifier. I think that we are better together, and the community will benefit from everyone working together, whether that's people of different races, religions, sexuality, culture, whatever, political parties. I think everyone needs to work together for the betterment of the community. And so this is a nonpartisan election. I am not trying to get into the political parties, agendas or motivations, because I will do my job. And I'm the one who's been doing the majority of the things that a judge will already do in terms of making really tough decisions about what's best for everybody involved in the situation, and mostly the community as a whole. What's best for the community? What's best for the victim of this crime? What's best for this defendant? And even though those may have competing interests, I'm very adept at making the decision about what the best outcome should be. And I'm the one working in the courtroom every single day. I'm the one that knows how courtrooms should operate. I'm the one that is the most hands-on with the most number of cases. So I handle approximately, I'd say 400 to 500 cases a year. Currently, every single felony case that happens in Douglas County goes through me on the front end, and I make certain decisions about how those cases should be handled. And then now I pass it off to the trial line. But there were 10 years of my career where I was the trial line attorney, and making the recommendations to the court and trying those cases in front of juries and judges. I've tried the most number of jury trials in this race. I've tried over 60 jury trials, which is a ton. You need a judge who knows how to try cases, who knows how to operate a courtroom fairly and efficiently and honestly. I think it is very important that we put someone on the bench who is an honest person, who can handle the business of the court on a daily basis in a fair and impartial manner, and that's me. And I want your audience to understand that I am not ignorant to the issues that all people deal with, including people of color, even though I may not be, I'm just, I'm the white lady, but I do get it. And I've gotten it for years. And because I get it and work in it, I've worked for my entire career to even the playing field a little bit. Even before I got into the law, I was running a dropout reduction program for students who were identified as at risk of dropping out of high school. And so I've always been interested in helping those who need a hand up, and trying to level the playing field a little bit, to just do the right thing, to do the fair thing, and do the honest thing. So I'm asking that everyone again return to the polls. I know it seems like we're voting a lot, and we are, but I don't want people to get apathetic about voting, because it is very important. If you're just thinking, oh, somebody else can handle this one, and hopefully they'll vote the right person in, do not think that. It is up to you to get it out there and cast your vote, make your voice heard, to say, Lauren Wallace is the best person for this position. She will work for all citizens of Douglas County, including me, including my neighbor, including my family members. And she's the one that needs to be in this position. So you go vote. The very first day that you can vote is June 10th. That's next Monday. This coming up Monday. June 10th through the 14th is early voting, and it's only at the courthouse this time. We don't have the choices of early voting locations that we usually do. It's only at the courthouse, and I know that's going to hinder especially some older people. So if you prefer to wait until Election Day, which is June 18th, so 2 weeks from today, you can go to your typical voting location. If you don't know where that is, you can call the Board of Elections with the county, and they can tell you, or you can look it up on the website, My Voter page. So I am asking that everyone go do what is best for you and what is best for Douglas County, and that is for me to be the next Superior Court judge in Douglas County.
And thank you for that. Lauren, you did not. I know you're always concerned about rambling. That was not rambling at all. That you were very succinct, and you covered everything. Good. Yeah, we laugh because I know that you worry about that and concern. Hey, look, I do too. It takes one to know one. But
and I get on tangents, you know.
Yeah, I do too.
I'm talking about something else forever, and I was really supposed to be talking about this other thing.
I do too, and I'm trying to figure out how did I go down this road. But look, you handled it. I believe that you. I believe you are the only runoff candidate of the Caucasian persuasion, as we say. And I'm glad that it's almost a little uncomfortable for you to. I was looking at you struggle like I'm a white lady because because it's a made up construct. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's a made up construct, and so you're struggling. Like, how do you? Because it's not real. It's not real, but people have made it real, and people like, well, why do you got to talk about race on the black man? Look, like we talked about earlier, right? The laws and the policies make us have to talk about this.
People made it a thing, so
they made it a thing, and so you make it a thing, and so we have to talk about it. And I know, and like I said, for all of these runoff elections that's happening, race is coming up a lot. So it's not just.
And I do want you to know that you can always talk to me about race. I don't shy away from those conversations because I do understand that it's a thing,
and that's why. And Lauren, that's what I was about to say is that you don't shy away from it. And I was going to say I think you are the only a white person that's in the runoff, I believe, at least identify. I'm assuming. I don't know, but until folks tell you, you don't know. But that being said, I think that you handled it well. They were the majority of the questions were about race. And when we come, I just don't like to see politicians that every time, the only time they want to talk about race is when it's in the criminal justice system, as if black people are not concerned about economics, the community, and everything else. Because look, we have District 3, we have commissioners, candidates that are coming on, and guess what? Race is going to be a lot of that, because I want to remind people that Douglas County is a predominantly a majority black community, and so guess what? The commissioners, in District 3, they need to, get ready for that stuff too. But we have to talk about it because you're making it other people making an issue, not the Black Man's Roundtable. Like I tell people all the time, Lauren, we can't afford to leave the black silent. You know, you can watch Good Morning America all day and there's not a black soul around the table. You don't have to call it white Good Morning America. It's just perceived. But we don't have that. We don't have that luxury. We don't have that option. We don't have that, privilege. We have to let people know that this is, the Black Man's Roundtable or the black whatever. But again, you have done outstanding. I want to tell people, I want to remind people, just like I will remind people with all of the other candidates who are coming on, the other 3 candidates we have, and that is to go back and really, if you really want the meat and potatoes, this is crunch time, what we're doing right now for this Runoff special. But go back and watch Lauren's Black Man's Roundtable episode. I'm not sure the episode number. I think it's maybe like 18 or 9. It was, I think, the high teens. Remember. Yeah, I can't remember, but her name is there, Lauren Wallace. Go back and check it out. And I would say check that one out. Check this one out before you, make your decision, whether it's early voting or whether it's voting on June the 18th. I think that the candidates are really putting it out there, really laying it out there. I'm not sure about what they're doing on all the other platforms. I just try to concentrate on this one, and because I know what this audience wants. So, Lauren, I appreciate it once again, and I look forward to, talking to you in the future. Coming back on here as either lawyer, judge, or whatever God has the plan for you, and you've been outstanding, and you've been very easy to interview and to talk to. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate you inviting me on here. I'm always up for the invitation. I enjoyed the conversation.
All right, Lauren. Well, look, you've already put out the information. Look, have a great rest of your evening. Have the rest of your run for this seat. And we will talk to you soon. And with that being said, again, I'm your host, Rodney Butler. And until next time, we will see you in those streets and those suites. Peace. Don't forget to check us out on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Do you have show ideas or want to be on the show? Shoot us an email at blackmansroundtable@gmail.com. And please follow us on Facebook.
1,